Well, first of all, welcome everybody. I appreciate the patience for the folks that were on here a little bit early. And when we share the recording view, let's make sure that we edit out um, and share the chat with me too. I'm not going to open my chat. I'll make sure that we edit out the
Yeah,
conversation about the snow and the sunshine and Matt Ishbia. Okay. Even though
absolutely.
Matt is a wonderful example of coaching versus managing, which, you know, I, this whole topic is a result of our last webinar right before the holidays. And this is something that a few people asked the question about, like, what is the difference between coaching and managing? How do you identify that? And how, as a manager, can you coach? First thing that's really significantly important is to understand is, we live in this world right now where we're trying to create everything and make it all black and white, whether it's politically, whether it's our belief, whatever it is. You are a manager by name, by title, your role. Okay. These are not mutually exclusive. High impact coaches are frontline managers, mid-level managers, or C-suite. But what we're trying to talk about is the behaviors, the skill sets, the approach, the mindset of a coach versus a manager. Okay. In challenging the status quo, when you look at our Victory Defined program, which we haven't talked a lot about on the live webinars yet, but we will start with the next one in March. We break it down into values, intangibles, creativity, team, objective, rules of the game, and you. And that rules of the game pillar of victory, the R, that's all about challenging the status quo. Okay. Seeing things for what they are, not just accepting them. Like, how can we make them better? What are some other things that we can do? And one of those ways is to really lean into the behaviors and the mindset and the skills of coaching versus just managing. And what is a coach? If you really want to go all the way back in time and you Wikipedia it or you pull out an old dictionary, a coach is something that moves people from point A to point B, right? That's what a coach truly is. But the way we're going to look at it today, it's a mentor who guides people. It helps them achieve their career and their personal goals. V, can you do me a favor? Just make sure while I'm talking, we mute everybody from your control, just in case someone forgets to, because it happens all the time. I was very guilty of that 2 weeks ago on a call, and my dog was chasing something around the yard, barking like crazy. So if we can go ahead and do that. So a coach helps them achieve their career goals, and they listen, right? They explore options. They help them reframe circumstances, and circumstances don't necessarily mean that they're negative circumstances. They could just be the situation, what's going on in the world, and how do you help them look at things differently so you can put a plan together. You can help them take a certain approach, and you can increase their level of confidence in being able to accomplish that. And a coach provides support. I talk a lot about with our clients when I do workshops, you push people, right? You push them outside their comfort zone, because we all know that it's through discomfort where we grow. Okay. You push them, but then you pull them close and you support them and you let them know that you're there for them and you help facilitate that development. Okay. And then a manager, what does a manager do? Now, this is going to make some folks smile. I mean, I know it does me, right? But a manager is viewed as a boss who directs people, like certain specific things that we need to achieve and deadlines when we need to achieve them by. And we talk a lot about motivation versus inspiration. And a manager spends a lot of time on motivation, and that's getting people to do things that they don't necessarily want to do, such as task, tracking their performance, just the things that are more of a nuance and more of a pain and boxes that they need to check as they perform their job. Now we're going to go side by side with the slide where we talk about a coach versus a manager. So I don't want to get too far into it, but I just want to give you the overview right now. But what is it that people want to do? Now, let me back up for a second. We know this. We know that our team members, our people, there's three things that they want right now overall. Okay. Number one, they want to know that they're valued. That's the first thing. Second thing is they want to know the work that they do is important and meaningful. It's important and it has meaning. And the third thing they want in their job, okay, they want to be coached. And from that coaching, we start to disseminate or to, break down, decipher what is it that they want out of their coach. And they want a coach who cares about their career and development. And as we dive into it more, I'll talk not just career goals, but what are their personal goals? What are the things that they want in their personal life as well? They want to know that their coach cares about them personally, not just about them on the job, not just about their performance, but cares about them personally. And that coach is willing to get alongside them and help them grow. The coaches that we work with, and I deal a lot with visuals, you're not leading from the front, you're leading right next to them. Okay. You're in the trenches with them. And that's what people are looking for in their coach. All right. So the managerial side of the job, numbers, metrics. Are we performing? Where are we at? What fires do we have to put out? What's going on in the present moment that I got to make a quick, decisive decision on? All right. Is there a new employee that I've got to get so wrapped up in to make sure that we're training them? Okay. What task do I have to make sure? What are we pushing right now as a sales team, for example, that I need to keep hammering my people with numbers, metrics. Here's the calls. Here's the appointment set. Here's the proposals. Here's the closed deals. What is it? I'll never forget it when I left coaching in 1998. Okay. A few years ago, not to date myself, 1998, our boss was fired at Texas A&M and I wanted a break. Again, I grew up coach's son. My entire life was in a gym. My entire life was spent around the game of basketball. And I wanted a break. I was only 28 years old. I wanted a break. And prior to moving to Texas, in College Station, Texas, which I love, I was living across the street from Wrigley Field. So here we are in the middle of Texas. We get fired. I'm like, I need to get back to Chicago and try something different. And a couple of my buddies convinced me to get into the mortgage business, which was a wonderful time because it was 1998. It was the start of a refi boom. I had zero idea what I was doing. Yes, I was a business major. Okay. Yes, I almost completed my master's degrees with a concentration in finance. I couldn't even use a financial calculator. All right. So what they told me to do was fake it till you make it, right? Call this many cold calls, set this many appointments, take this many pre-approvals, and pre-approvals and close this many loans. It was all about numbers. Nothing invested in me, like in terms of personal growth. How can we get you comfortable with what you're doing? Everything was fake it till you make it. And I was constantly doing things that I had no desire to do. Right. And everything was numbers. And I think as managers, when we just focus on the managerial task, we're so outcome driven and we forget the fact and we miss the fact that the outcomes are truly a byproduct of the process. The outcomes are truly a byproduct of our behaviors inside of the process. And I can't see everybody, but if you want to do a show of hands, lead measures versus lag measures. And I don't want to skip ahead of here, but managers really focus on the lag measures. And what are those? Those are our quarterly numbers. Those are our annual numbers, right? Once we get there, once we get to the end of the quarter, we either met that number or we didn't. And what happens if we didn't? Nothing. There's nothing we can do about it this quarter. I mean, we did not meet it. That's a lag measure. And that's where we spend a lot of our time in management sometimes, right? So this is sort of, we're always trying to satisfy those above us. We're always trying to meet these numbers and we're always trying to motivate our people to do the things that we deem necessary to meet those numbers. Now, the coaching flip side is this, and this is where I get really passionate, really excited about this is, okay, we're going to meet our people where they're at. What is it that makes them tick? Why are they missing something inside of the process? Or man, what makes them so good at that inside the process? And coaches, and think about if any of you are, athletes here, or if you were in music, or if you were in theater or science, whatever your point of reference is. Okay. Whatever ours just happens to be the athletics of business, whatever your point of reference is. Who are the people that were leaders in your life that really connected with you? How vested were they in you? How curious were they about your personal and professional growth? Coaches are curious about what their people want to achieve, not just at work, but in their personal life. They get to know them because they want their people to know that they will support them. And as a coach, when we start talking about the team, there's a singleness of purpose that they create. And they do that through a shared mission, vision, and goals. And they talk about it. There's a common language amongst the team. And the coach is very acutely aware of whether or not that's resonating with each team member. So this is an important part, like as a coach. We absolutely set expectations. Sometimes people think, oh, the coaching thing, it's a little bit touchy feely. Like, I get it. You want to meet your people where they're at. You want to know what makes them tick. You want the psychological safety. But what about the expectations? Hey, here's the bottom line. We have to perform. We have to produce. That's it. At the end of the day, people in our society, for whatever reason, over the years, we become afraid to talk about winning, which is where our Victory Defined foundational program has come from. Okay. People are afraid to talk about winning. They're afraid to hold people accountable. Set expectations. A good coach also focuses on the lead measures. What's happening weekly? What adjustments can we make? Okay. They reflect back, holding people accountable. Now, you and I both know, though, at the end of the day, who's the only person in our life that can truly hold us accountable? It's ourselves, right? But great coaches get their people to a point where they want to hold themselves accountable. So they set those clear expectations, they focus on the lead measures, and they help their people make adjustments. And they leverage their team member strengths to close whatever gaps in their performance that there may be. You know, I came from a time where if I was a basketball player, which I was, and I was struggling with my left hand, which I did, okay, your coach would tell you, God dang it, Molitor, and it might not be that language. All right. You need to spend hours working on your left hand. Forget going to your right. Forget going between your legs. Forget the no look pass behind the back. Forget shooting a three. Go spend an hour working on nothing but your left hand. That's defeating the purpose of leveraging and doubling down on our strengths to fill the gaps in what we do. Okay. People want to know that their strengths are important. And as a coach, you figure out what those strengths are and you figure out a way to get your people to lock into those, okay, to achieve it at the next level. Now I like this graphic. And this graphic, coaching versus managing. I want to go to the managing side first, if you'll stay with me. All right. Because I want to spend a little bit more time on the coaching. Measuring outcome, which I mentioned, right? Reporting, monitoring. For those of you in leadership roles, you know, just kind of nod your head if this resonates with you. All right. Scheduling meetings. How about that? The meetings, the Zoom calls, the phone calls, the never ending list of people reaching out to you for fires to put out. You know, determining your different return on investment, identifying evidence-based practices, opportunities for improvement. That's where the managing side really focuses. When you get to the coaching side, all right, so how do we empower our teams to grow? How do we empower our teams to improve? And then what can we do as their coaching leader to remove their perceived barriers? What is it that we can do? And then do you ask questions? This is one of the single most powerful things you can do in any relationship. Forget just the business world. In any relationship, if you want to add value to a relationship and you want to develop a huge and earn a huge level, deep level of trust, get really good at asking questions. Get really good at asking questions and then shutting up and listening, actively listening, not waiting for your turn to talk, but listening to what they're saying, listening to what they're not saying, and reading their body language. All right. But ask those questions to find solutions and understand when we talk about what makes your people tick. Understand the external and internal environment, as well as the external and internal influence on them. I try to find out as much as I possibly can about clients I work with, coaching clients I work with, people that are on our team, and our relationships, our connections go well beyond the boundaries of work simply because we spend time in investing in each other and getting to know each other. And here's the thing that does. Because one thing is certain, at some point, we're going to deal with adversity. At some point, we're going to deal with really crappy circumstances. When you spend time investing in your people and getting to know them and being curious about them and helping them with their personal goals as well as their professional and career goals, all of a sudden you realize you're in this for each other, not with each other. And I want you to think about the culture that creates on your team. And we're going to get into the benefits here in a second before we do an exercise. But think about the culture that will create once your team realizes that you're in this for them, not just with them. To me, that's pretty significant. And we've all had we've all had coaches, leaders, bosses in our life that have impacted us profoundly, positively and profoundly. On the flip side, we've also had those that have been very challenging, very difficult, very hard to work with. Here's what I want to challenge you to do though as we look at these. Don't write those people off. I want you to learn vicariously through the things they did wrong. Okay. I want you to take a look at that now. Again, I'm going to go back to this black and white world that we live in right now, which is driving me crazy. But it also doesn't mean write off the things they did positively. I worked for and played for some really great men who were very hard to deal with at times. But I'm going to tell you what, I learned a ton from them. And I took so much away. I didn't hold their flaws against them. Okay. I didn't hold their weaknesses against them. Instead, I learned vicariously. And here I am. Some of them, it's been 20, 25, 30 years since I was with them. And I'll recognize myself doing what they were doing that I couldn't stand. And I stopped. So you just learn vicariously through those that you worked with or worked for, and always stay conscious of that. And that goes back to when we talked about our last webinar. What we have painted on our wall here is that self-awareness is the competitive advantage, not a competitive advantage. It's the competitive advantage. And coaches spend an inordinate amount of time increasing their level of self-awareness in every one-on-one meeting they have, every team meeting they have, every observation they make, every podcast they listen to, every video they watch, everything they read, the content they dive into. That level of self-awareness is constantly at work. And it's not, I don't want to make it sound like this is awful effort. No, it's just a way of life. And when you do it enough, it becomes a way of life. Okay. And you're constantly coaching for improvement. Again, the outcomes are a byproduct of doing things the right way. As we work on developing coaches, one of the words that I focus on, not one of the words, one of the qualities that we focus on is authenticity, becoming an authentic coach. And we break that word down into three things, right? Honesty, being honest with yourself and with others. And that means the ability to have the difficult conversation, to tell the truth, to not sugarcoat it. That doesn't mean a brutal delivery. That doesn't mean bad timing. That doesn't mean whenever you feel. It means understanding when the right time to deliver the right news and the right information is. Okay. So honesty with yourself and with others. Integrity. Now, that's not morality. Integrity is this, that your actions and words align. Think about it as a coach. Okay. You do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, and how you say you're going to do it to the best of your ability. Think about the trust. Those first two words alone will earn you with your folks, right? In your relationships, honesty and integrity. And then the third piece, which a lot of people are finally talking about now, we've talked about it for years, is the vulnerability piece. As a coach, you don't feel like you have to have all the answers. When you look, one of my favorite coaches is Steve Kerr. All right. I've known Steve for years. I just loved Steve when I was a younger player growing up, and I knew his whole story. And if you don't know Steve Kerr's story, I'm not going to talk about it now. We don't have enough time. Go look it up. Go all the way back to what his father did, what happened to his father, his family, what they've been through. And when he was playing in Arizona, when he walked on, it'll take your admiration and respect and view of Steve Kerr to a whole different level. Okay. But he believes in player-led teams. He empowers his players to make decisions. They contribute to the decisions he makes in games. Okay, the vulnerability piece. Be willing to say, you know what, I'm not sure I got the answer right here. What do you think? And when you do that, you become such an authentic leader and develop this incredible level of trust. And when we get caught up in just the role and the job description and the task of managing, we can miss that piece. Now, I'm going to give you an example before I jump into the benefits. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to share something with you. I haven't thought about this before today. I'd say 10, 15 years when I ran into this person last. It might even be more. Okay. We had a young man playing for us at Texas A&M, was a point guard, senior, which means it was last year, right? And we were fighting for our lives. We had two unbelievable injuries that decimated us, two of our studs. We were 6-2 at the time. Then we started losing a couple close games. It was late in our head coach's contract. We knew our jobs were on the line. So when your job's on the line, what is it that you need to do? You need to produce. You need to win. Okay. And you need to do it right now. All of a sudden we're 6-3. All of a sudden we're 6-6. All of a sudden we're 7-6. All of a sudden we're 7-10, 7-11. We're on Big Monday playing Texas. We lose by 1. Go to Oklahoma with 6 players. We lose in triple overtime when they're loaded. Now we find ourselves at Nebraska, and our point guard was on the brink of being ineligible for one class. Okay. And he was just from right outside Dallas, played for an incredible high school coach, was a great person, didn't have the easiest upbringing. And I'll tell you what, he's one of the toughest, physically toughest players I've ever coached. Just and it was small in size, huge in stature. We got a phone call, and we're going to play Tyronn Lue. If there's any basketball fans here, you absolutely know who Tyronn Lue is. He's an NBA coach now, had a great career. He was a point guard in Nebraska. I think he was averaging about 26 at the time, his senior year. We're in the locker room at Nebraska, and we're playing Tyronn Lue. And Derek is a key to the W. We put up on the board. Derek has to stop Tyronn Lue. Okay, that's the key to the win. We get a phone call from our administration. After reviewing all the documents, Derek is deemed ineligible the rest of his senior year. He's out warming up in front of 15,000 people. So we sit there and we look at each other like, how are we going to tell Derek that they told us 7.5 minutes before tip-off that they're declaring he's ineligible? So we called Derek into the locker room. He had no idea why we were calling him into the locker room. And there was a huge discrepancy. To this day, I don't think it was right. And the kid breaks down. And at that moment, I realized we had spent so much time trying to keep him eligible, get the grades, right? Get the numbers. We had tried to spend so much time telling him what he had to do, where he needed to be, what he needed to do to beat Nebraska, to be a class on time. We spent so much time trying to make sure he was eligible. We did him a complete disservice in trying to save our jobs. We did him a complete disservice as opposed to really connecting and finding out what's going on in his world and why were you struggling? What can we do to help you? Instead of telling you what to do, what can we do? Okay. And I don't know why it dawned on me this morning. I was standing there shaving, and I don't know why, but I think that's a pretty good analogy of what we sometimes do when we're coming to quarter's end, when we're coming to year end, right? We go to our default, which is, we got to command and control and tell them what to do. As a coach, you connect with those people and you stay there with them and try to get them to keep locking into what makes them perform at the highest level inside of the process. Okay. And what are the benefits? What are the benefits of coaching? How can they help you become a better, more effective, more impactful leader? First of all, it increases your level of ability to get the most out of your people. They're going to work harder. They're going to work smarter. They're going to work longer. They're going to be more efficient. They're going to be more honest. They're going to hold their teammates more accountable. They're going to have more positive energy. They're going to be more resilient. They'll do a better job of dealing with reality in real time. All right. I promise you that. And it creates a psychologically safe environment for your team members to find their way. Psychological safety does not mean soft. It does not mean soft by any stretch of imagination. When I was a coach, and to this day, I help out at our high school, I help out with our youth teams. I firmly believe in making practice harder than games. You have to make practice harder than games so your people know how to respond in certain situations. So when you create a psychologically safe environment, you're allowing your people to fail. You're pushing them outside their comfort zone. You're creating chaos for them to make order out of. Here's what you're doing. Here's where the safety comes from. You support them. They know that you have their back. That's where the psychological safety comes from. Okay. And you help them find their way. Let them know that it's okay to put it out there. It's going to increase your team's resiliency. It's going to increase creative idea sharing, collaboration, all right, cohesiveness, togetherness. Just create that psychological safe environment. And that is a byproduct and that is a benefit of coaching. And you create a culture that people want to be a part of and that people do not want to leave. It's funny when I speak, and sometimes we'll talk about at some of our events, we'll talk about recruiting the top talent and retention. And people get all like beside themselves about the different things to call retention and a different thing to talk about recruiting top talent. Hey, here's the bottom line. The bottom line is we want to be successful. The bottom line is we want to surround ourselves with the right people, good people that fit our culture, right? And protect our culture and grow our culture that are going to help us be successful. So at the end of the day, stop worrying about how I term it. Bottom line, we want the best people to get on board, and we want to create something that is very hard for them to leave. And we really spend a lot of time, the majority of our time in a biotech, biopharma, medical device space, specifically with startups. And you'll see turnover. 2 years here, then next 2 years, the next 3 years. That's the nature of the beast. That's the industry. But you know what's really cool? I've got clients that are really hard to leave. And when people do leave, you know what the great coaches do, the great leaders do? They know they're leaving for a better situation. They know that they're leaving for a better situation, and it's okay. We did our best. All right. So create that culture. And if you, as a coach, inspire, positively influence, not negatively influence, but positively influence, and you impact your people, let's be selfish for a second. It's going to create a lot more joy in your life. It's going to create a lot more joy. You're going to have a lot more fun doing what you do when you buy in and you commit to becoming a coaching leader. And you're going to help your people achieve victory at the highest level. And we're not going to get into now, we will with our next couple of webinars, victory in terms of what that means to you. What does winning mean to you? When you win inside of the process, when you win inside of the day, you're going to hit your numbers. And if you don't hit your numbers, you're going to hit pretty dang good numbers. And you're going to have pretty cool people on your team. And you're going to have an amazing culture that people want to be a part of. And those are the benefits. Now, I want to jump into an exercise, okay? And inside of this exercise, I want you to think about, and I want you to take some time, a couple minutes here to write down some of the pain points you're experiencing as a coaching leader right now. And if you're not in a leadership role, position-wise, if you're an emerging leader, okay, think about some of the pain points you know that are out there. And I want you to just take a minute or two and write those down and just kind of toss them around your head. And I don't write them down just to write them down. I want you to feel it. Okay. I want you to be like, okay, here's a struggle. God. And if you want to write down an example, that's even better. But I'm going to give you about a minute just to write those down. All right. And then we'll go into the exercise and what we're going to do. And as we're doing this, any questions, any comments, anything, feel free to throw them out there because we have a few minutes as we do this exercise. Or don't. Oh, you can't because Jeanette has you muted.
No, everybody can unmute. And I was actually going to say that just remember, if you have any questions or you want to revisit one of the points that it has been talking about, we still haven't gotten to the QA part of it, even though we're going to do the exercise now. So make sure to have those. And there's only great things that can come out of it because, for example, this topic was the result of one of the questions that we had on the last webinar. So just feel free to write them on the chat or have them written down somewhere so we can go over in the Q&A session in a bit.
And Laura, great comments. I just opened up the chat. Great comments. And, you reminded me of something that I wanted to say earlier was, it's very profound that we know what people want. It took these years of Gallup studies and for them to tell us that people lead managers, not companies, right? And that people want three things, and that people want to be valued. They want to know that the work they do is important, it has meaning, and they want to be coached. And we sit here and I think back, isn't that what we all always wanted? Just now we talk about it. Now it's articulated and now it's okay to talk about and it's okay to discuss. It's all I ever wanted. It's all I ever wanted, whether I was coaching college basketball, whether I was in the recruiting space, whether I was in the mortgage space, and it's all the people that I worked with that made them thrive. So Laura, thanks for putting those comments in the chat.
No problem. I also have a question if we have time.
Yes, I do.
So, because I have a lot of my people manager employees on here. Yay. But if you're coming from a culture where it is more manager and not
Mhm.
as much coaching, how quickly can you expect, because I want to set the expectations here,
Yeah.
how quickly can you expect to see results when you are shifting from management culture to a coaching and manager culture? It's not going to happen overnight, is it? But it's
No,
repetitive
no,
again and
no.
again, correct?
No, because there's going to be people entrenched in the way you're doing it right now. But are you talking organizationally or are you talking on individual teams?
If you
Because
can address
individual
both,
teams
I'll
will,
hear your thoughts on it.
yeah, individual teams will happen quicker because what you can do is you can celebrate every single victory, every single win, and you can do it on a weekly basis, you can on a daily basis, whenever you meet, and you can talk about and have the conversations about how did this approach help you in this situation? Can you give us, you can share examples, you can share stories. Organizationally, obviously, it's going to take much longer. You are going to have organizations at the top that push back on it because at the top, they've got to report either to the owner or they've got to report to the shareholders, whatever it may be, it's going to be slower. But here's the thing I will tell you, you cannot deny success. And when you do things at the grassroots level and you lock into the teams and work on it on a one-on-one basis and the impact and the stories that begin to be told, and you have a responsibility as a coaching leader to tell those stories up, to share those stories up. Find a way to do it. It can be social media, it can be intra office email, whatever it is. Tell the story, tell the story, tell the story. Have your people tell the story. Here's what my boss did. A great example. My wife has a very successful sales career for a wonderful company, Comcast Business. And I happened to be walking by her desk the other day and she hung up. She goes, you know what I love about my boss? I go, no, what's that? She goes, he never drops the ball. I trust him to never drop the ball. I said, that's great. You're telling me that. I said, tell some people on your team. I said, tell some people up the chain of command. Let them know that, because that needs to be, those stories need to be told because it's like this, really the best leaders are the ones that study other great leaders. And they want to know, that's one of the things people ask me often, do you miss coaching college basketball? It's been years now. I mean, it has been years. And of course, there's certain things that you miss. One of the things I miss is coaching clinics. And they don't have them like they used to, but I can remember going to the Nike clinics in Vegas and all over the country. And I meet with guys from different regions of the country that had different pain points, that had different struggles, that had different challenges. And I would figure out how they did things. I would figure out how they did things besides just the X and O's. And I would pick their brains and try and write down as many notes that I could bring back and share as possible. Right. So internally, try to learn from other coaching leaders, share your stories, your wins with people up the chain of command, and it will happen over time. It will. Either it will happen or you'll see the good people leave.
Thanks, Ed.
You got it, Laura. Thanks for the question. Because it's a question that's beyond relevant. It's very pertinent to the majority of organizations right now. All right. So what do you think? I think we have the pain points written down. Now, here's what I want you to do. All right. I'm gonna put this slide back up. And I want you to think, okay, as someone who just is locked in to the manager title and doesn't really focus on coaching their people, how will they pick one pain point? How will they handle this pain point? All right. And I want you to write that down, whatever your pain point might be. And I would really love to share these in the Q&A too, if a couple folks are willing to do that. What's a pain point,
Yeah.
how that manager would approach it. And then how a leader who's a coaching leader, a manager who coaches, who focused on the coaching qualities and behaviors and skills, how they would handle this situation. And this speaks right into creative thinking, reframing novel solutions, and a couple different approaches. Because the example I shared with you about our point guard at Texas A&M, I can absolutely tell you right now exactly how I would have handled the situation. And would the outcome have been different? I like to think so. I think the process would have been more enjoyable and more empowering for him and more rewarding for us. So let's think in those terms. And if you have any questions about that, what I mean by this, please do not hesitate to ask. or put them in the chat.
Yeah, I do see some people that are deep in thought with the exercise. So really, if you have any questions, if it's not very clear, we can reframe it, and please go ahead and unmute yourselves, and let's get over it. And let's go over it. All right.
That was not me, was it, V?
No, that was me. I was gonna
Okay.
mute myself because I heard a loud noise around the street, and I paused the recording instead.
That's
Trying to
okay.
pause my mic because that's what I do sometimes. Okay.
And if anyone would like to step into this a little bit and kind of share with us how you're able to see the difference, like the whole shift in, okay, I'm looking at it through the eyes of a manager who doesn't coach, but gets things done. I mean, they could be great. They could be killing their numbers, right? It could be unbelievable, but they don't coach. And then I'm looking at this through the eyes and the approach of someone who does coach. And if anybody would like to lean into that and share that, that would be really super cool.
I can give a hypothetical from like my situation
Be
in
great.
HR, not necessarily in my current company, but I've been in companies where I had a ton of managers and I didn't have coaches, and the turnover rates are higher. And that's because they were managing the outcomes, and whatever outcome they needed, they managed to that rather than taking care of their people. And they might have hit those numbers, but they were short-lived because then they're good people. You're right. They're good people left.
Why, when we all know like the answer, we all know the solution. Why do you think folks still insist on just operating with a manager mindset?
I think part of it is ingrained in the organization. I also think to coach somebody requires time, and it requires effort. And a lot of people are too busy to slow down, and they don't deem it important. Like, oh, if I'm still hitting my numbers, that's what matters. They're not playing the long game.
That's a great point. And I think I'm curious if the fact that they've never done it before and realized the benefits and the results, if that kind of makes them hesitate to really go all in on it.
I think that's part of it. And then if you haven't seen it done or modeled, I mean, think about it. Somebody who has been coached is much more likely to coach someone else. Someone who has gone through their career being managed is much more likely to manage someone else.
Okay. All right. Well, as we jump into the Q&A,
I was going to say,
go ahead, Eric.
I'd completely agree with that as well. Not necessarily in my current role, but if I think back to, just being in sales with other companies down the way, like you get those managers that kind of like point and tell you, this is what you need to do. This is what you should do. And deep down, you're thinking, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't have the nerve to say that to something like
Amen.
that. But then I've had, other managers that have, like you said earlier, been side by side with you. Let's go out and try this together, and work on kind of strategizing, trying to figure out a game plan together, and not telling you to go do something, but actually being there with you,
Right.
and literally coaching you as they're with you.
It's a game changer, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Eric, thanks for sharing that. Now, with that being said, let's jump into the Q&A, and I just want to leave you with this. And obviously, John Wooden, one of the greatest coaches of all time, but more importantly, one of the greatest men of all time, greatest people of all time, in terms of the relationships he built and the impact he had on so many people, whether you played for him or not, right? If you were willing to invest in yourself by sitting down with him to pick his brain, he was going to in return invest in you and give you all he got. But I just love his quote: seek opportunities, show your care, The smallest gestures often make the biggest difference. And be intentional about how you do that. Like, how can I do that? Is it a handwritten note? Is it checking in 20 minutes before our team meeting because I know they had this going on in their life the night before? You know, what are the things that you can show that you care? The little things. Okay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and open it up into a Q&A. Peanut, you want to drive this bus?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we do that, if you guys feel comfortable sharing some of your pain points in the chat, I would go ahead and grab that information. And even though we didn't go through each example, but we can go ahead and send you or share podcast episodes, or a lot of our posts also are often focused into solving those pain points or just a different approach on how to handle those. So feel free to share them in the chat. And I'll go ahead and pull that information, and then we'll send you anything that we can do that we think can be helpful for you. And we'll make sure to keep those in mind also for future Q&As. So go ahead and feel free to write them. If you don't want to share them with everybody, go ahead and share them with me directly, and I will still grab them from there. Okay.
And let me build on that real quick, if I can be, not just for future Q&As. As you guys know, I do the newsletter every single Friday. Tomorrow's will be Saturday.
Yep.
But this is content that I would love to share in that. So we have so much that we want to share. And it's really helpful when we have our plan, right? Like, we know what pillars we're focused on, what fundamentals of coaching we're focused on. In the next Q&A, did you just mention that we're going to start talking more of the how to, but we'll also use this in the newsletter and other things as well. So please do not hesitate to share, like, hey, Knucklehead, could you please talk about this? You always touch on it, but you never dive into it. So I would love that. And George, are you feeling okay? You've been quiet today, man.
Oh, I'm good. I'm
right.
good. I'm sorry. No, I'm taking
all
notes.
right.
I'm crossing my fingers, and maybe Vianette just mentioned this, but hopefully we can the slide deck may be provided as well. I'd like this,
Yes,
maybe an
absolutely.
access to the recording, because I'd like to take my notes on this. I think this would be a great little note thing as well.
Yep.
All this
Absolutely. We'll
content.
get that. We'll
Absolutely.
get that slide deck too. Yes.
I
Yes, sir.
actually have a question. I'm happy to, show my face if need be. I am fairly new in my organization. I say fairly new because our organization has a pillar where we have people that have either been here for 5 years or like 30 years. So me as a new manager, one of my kind of pain points is I am that coaching manager. So I set one-on-ones with my team. I like to sit next to them. I want to show you, methods. I want to get your feedback, and I'm really inclusive in hearing from my team. You guys are in the weeds. I need to know specifically what doesn't work for you. However, because I am very involved in that coaching piece, I often find that I put my team so far above myself that I end up on the back end of my managing tasks because I'm so invested in making sure they don't fall behind or they're able to meet their quotas and the metrics that are set by people above me. So that's one of my pain points. And I'm hoping that maybe, I get a little feedback to help organize myself and help figure out how I can take my time back and still be able to give all that I need to my team.
I absolutely love that question. And thank you for sharing that, because that is so spot on with so many people experience. And here's what we do. How do you connect your managerial duties? How do you connect those things with coaching? How do those coexist? So how do you take the accountability piece, okay, of, say, numbers? Like, if you want to get really specific, right? So let's just say you have someone who isn't, what would be a task that someone falls short on for you?
So for us, we submit applications every day. So a task that they will fall short on is maybe not meeting all of the required applications to be submitted in the required time, or answering an email within the required time.
Okay. So when that happens, what's your process for getting them to submit them on time? What is your process as a manager? What do you do?
I jump in we have one-on-one. So my coaching point is, hey, what happened? Let's talk through this. Cause you've obviously, you're not doing this every month. So what happened. Let's talk through what happened. And
Mhm.
I then make myself available to say, well, where can I help? So it's not just, hey, you missed this. It's you missed this. How can I help you? What was different from this month compared to last month?
Okay.
And that's kind of how I started.
Okay. So what is it for you then? I want to make sure that I understand you clearly. What is it for you that you're missing? Like, what is it that you're neglecting in your manager role? What
Uh,
is it?
My personal tasks. So because I
Yeah.
am so invested in saying, okay, hey, you missed this, and I know that our metrics are really high, I will put off something responding to my own emails within my given said time of my 48 hours to say, okay, that's not as important because I need to make sure that you're hitting the metrics because metrics are so important. And I don't want to be the manager that's laying the hammer down because you're not meeting it. I want to be able to say you're not meeting it for a reason. So tell me what that reason is so I can help you. But I'm so invested in helping that I often put my own work aside, which ends up leaving me the manager that is there before everyone and there well after everyone to
And
make
there you
sure.
go.
And Ed, I can
And that's
chime
why
in
a
there
lot of
little
people
bit.
don't want to get into leadership.
Because I work with Alicia a lot. So context is a
Yeah.
lot of my leaders also have their own, like managing people is one of their responsibilities, not their only responsibility,
Right. So
like
there's,
many organizations.
and this would be like a real deep dive long conversation, but okay, is it a time management issue? Is it an efficiency issue? Is there a way the conversations that you have with the people that you're leading that you can shorten them up and tighten them up? Right. I think it's, and Dan, you're spot on. That's the thing, right? Like you think back to your coaching days, there's a reason that we got to the office and watched film at 5 a.m. And when you walk by our office at 11 at night, we're still watching film. That's one of the hard parts, right? And the way is, okay, how do we piece it all together? What can I do more efficiently? What can I do? Like, what is my routine? What is my time? Where do I have something blocked off where you cannot, step into this? And you're right, Dan, coaching is a lifestyle, right? And it is a way of life. And there is a way to figure out what you need to do, Alicia. I mean, there really is. And I'd love to jump in the call with you because what we basically do is you dissect your day and you break it down and you give, real life examples. And the way that you ask your people, how did you handle something or what happened, will be the same way with you that I would talk through with you. Is like, okay, so tell me about what's going on. All right, let's talk about this person that came in. Is this something that's recurring? Because we all know we have those people that are a time suck too, right? Like they're always dealing with the same stuff. And it comes to a point, give them a fish or teach them to fish. And sometimes that can get in your way. So I think those are some things to really sit down and journal and write down and talk about and track and see it. And sometimes what can happen is you can cut things off at the path before they happen. When you can see certain behaviors that are leading towards that next one-on-one conversation that's not scheduled. Okay. And be loyal to yourself and to your task. But great leaders do put their people before them. And that's a hard part. And that's a challenging part.
Thank you.
Great points, Dan. Thank you. What else we got? Eric, do you have a question or a statement? Okay. I just happened to look at you, so I put you on the spot. I apologize about that.
If anybody else has a question they want to address in front of the group or, regarding the presentation or they want to go over their pain point, we can still, stay in the clock. We only have 1 minute left, but, Ed, I'm going to throw you in there and I'm going to say that you probably have like 5 more minutes so we can stay connected. If
Yeah,
anybody
we'll
else has a
stay
question.
connected here for a few more minutes. I know folks have this scheduled to 11. So you got to scoot again. We'll get you everything. We'll get you the recording and we'll get you the PowerPoint. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me via email. And email suggestions, whatever you want, or email questions, and we will get back to you as quickly as we possibly can, which is pretty quick. Thanks,
Okay.
Laura. You're too kind.
Yep, and I am taking some questions directly to me from some folks that are really interesting. Ed, I think you would really like to hear about them later on.
Okay.
We'll obviously we'll keep the who said who for the rest of the team, but with definitely some great questions to continue to create more content and some pain points that other folks might be struggling with as well. I'm going to write our emails right here in the chat right now. Also, if you want to reach out right afterwards, and go ahead. We still have time for at least one more
Yeah,
question.
I want to
Or-
address something because Dan made a great point. Thanks, George. And we need to connect too, by the way, about that other topic. Dan made a great point. Your practice plan as a coach accounted for every minute, not 30-minute blocks. And what I do with my daily plan, and I on top of your practice plan, I would always have a thought for the day. Okay. And I would have a basketball IQ for the day. So a bad example, but an example would be never dribble a loose ball. And that is something that we would say throughout practice. Thought for the day, I'd share the thought and we would focus on reaffirming that thought. So our practices were very structured. My days, ironically, when we first started the Molitor Group 6.5 years ago, we called our daily schedule the practice plan, our daily plan. Okay. And we did write everything down. And each day I do gratitude, I do thought for the day. I break it down into family members. There's a lot to it. And we have an incredible time management tool called Sunsama. It's called Sunny inside of our group, but it breaks down your day. It breaks down your task. It allows you to prioritize. It allows you to move things around and make adjustments. And there's going to be times when, and here's what it really helps you do as a leader. There's going to be times when you have to either move on from this task because it's not a higher priority than the next task. All right. Or there's going to be times where you're gonna have to push something aside, reschedule it because you have to see this through and get it done. That allows you to develop your skills as a leader and a decision maker because you have to do that. And we break things down into the 4 quadrants. And it's Dwight Eisenhower's decision making matrix that Stephen Covey made famous in this generation. And that's the important and urgent, important and not urgent, not important, not urgent, and not important, urgent. And we break stuff down, and that's how we delegate, and that's how we share, and that's how we create things. So there's all sorts of ways to do it. But I will say this, Dan, to your point, the more organized you are, the more specific you are, the better you are at streamlining your activities, being more efficient with them and getting more done. And I don't want to say getting more done in less time because we live in this world where everyone's like, oh, become a millionaire in 27 seconds, right? Here's the thing. We've got a lot on our plate. We've got a lot to do. How do we do it the most efficiently? And preparation. So Dan, thank you for that point. And that is, and we didn't even talk about it today because we'll talk about this in the how to become a high impact coach over the course of the next 6-7 months. But we have one of the key cornerstones of our foundational program is the 5 fundamentals of coaching, which are preparation, communication, execution, reflection, and adaptation. And when you really think about that, everything begins and ends with what, Dan? Preparation. All right. Thank you for putting that app is unbelievable. It's the best.
Ed, what was
Yeah.
that third one
I love
of
it.
the 5 fundamentals? Prep, communication, something. and-
Execution,
Oh, I had execution, then I must be missing a different one.
reflection, and adaptation.
Ironic, that's the one I missed. Thanks.
You do a pretty good job of reflection, though.
Some days.
Uh, all right. Well, everybody,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you.
I gotta
Yeah.
jump.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks.
Pleasure.
We'll stay on here, and we're good.
Right. Then I don't know, you're muted if you're trying to say something, Dan.
Do you have it muted?
Let's see. I can mute, but I cannot unmute. He actually has to mute himself. Let me see.
There we go.
I found I am
There you
terrible
go.
with Zoom calls, but I
That's
was just
okay.
trying to read the name of that. But Ed, I just want to say hello to you from Pat Donahue,
Oh,
Pat Sullivan. How many more do I need to name
Oh,
drop to you?
hey, have you talked to Sully lately?
Yeah, I got a LinkedIn message from him not too long ago, about a week ago, or about a
Yeah.
month ago now. It was for my birthday. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you hear about?
I would love to connect with you sometime offline of
Yeah.
this. I mean,
Here, right?
I'll email you my
Okay.
contact info.
Okay, where are you at,
Yep.
Dan?
I work currently in Hammond, Indiana, but I
Okay.
was a Bradley grad with
Okay.
Pat
Pat's the
Donahue
best.
is our one of
Yeah.
his Coach Molinari,
Coach Mo.
Dwayne Broussard, the whole group. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
anyway,
That was a good crew.
but I'd love to connect with you sometime offline.
Yeah, please send me an email. We'll connect. That'd be fantastic.
Sounds great. Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Take care.